Hello, my name is Paul Roverman, so named because of my rather unhealthy obsession with the British car manufacturer Rover. And that's what I'm doing here today, and every day in fact, something towards the keeping of these cars. Some may even say I have a rather evangelistic approach to saving cars, and that's why cars like Fred the Shed never got scrapped. But guess what? I'm glad he didn't. Because look at him now.
Fred the Shed, Fred the Shed, Fred the Shed, Fred the Shed.
No, we can't call it that any longer. So if you remember then, I always thought this car was worthy of being saved, whereas my lanky colleague Boaty was always, no, scrap the thing, it's not worthwhile the hassle. Well, just look at Fred now, as promised, back in the yard to show off what the Bath boys can do. It's not finished, there's still some paint work to do on it, but from the sides, definitely very nice. One of the things about this car that made it look particularly tatty was this rear quarter, which was rather badly dented in. I attempted to fix it. I fixed it a bit, but not enough because you could still see it, and that light cluster did not fit. But now, I can't really see any evidence that there was a problem in the first place. This car has had an awful lot of money spent on it. An awful lot of money. So I'm going to point out the things I can see, and then I'm going to let Rob show you the things that you can't see. That's been painted, that's been replaced. The wheels look much brighter than they used to do, and I can definitely see new discs, pads, calipers, front and rear. This was a solid car, which is one of the reasons why they were so happy to take it on in the first place. And I know there's a lot of stuff going on underneath it that's been replaced, a lot of stuff that actually didn't need to be replaced, but it was replaced anyway. Fred was called the Shed because this seat was broken, but now it's no longer broken, and in fact it's no longer the same seat, it's a different seat, a much nicer, much tidier seat. The carpet was originally rather ruined, but as you can see, it's not now. Cards have been replaced with this lovely Alcantara stuff, not just there, but oh yes, the headlining as well. How fantastic is that? Oh, the boot's much better than it was as well. I spent ages trying to get this carpet to look better. It's still not perfect, but it's a lot better than it used to be. It's got a set of matching tyres all round. That's always a nice thing to see. I'm reasonably sure there's been some work done underneath here as well, but I don't know what it is without asking. I tell you what I do know though, this car has cost an awful lot of money. I don't mean when I sold it, because it didn't then, but now it has done. But was it all worth it? Was it really worthwhile spending this amount of money on a car that I originally called the Shed? Well, behind me are two chaps that make me look small. The brothers Bath. Introducing Aaron, who's done an awful lot of work on this car, haven't you?
Just a bit, yeah.
Go on, tell me.
So literally when we got it up in the air, we stripped the entire subframe out, the rear arms, upper arms, everything, took the springs out, went through the rear trailing arm, replaced all the bushes, upper link balls, pressed them in, you name it, done rear shockers, painted the entire underneath at car, then gone over it with wax oil. Then we did the front struts, front disc, calipers. Literally the only thing that wasn't done at the front were the wheel bearings. And then as far as the engine goes, we literally went through every bit that it needed for that bit. And as far as bits of trim, went through bits of that from the old Tourer that we took to bits, put them bits on. And
did it need any welding?
There were only one little tiny bit, and that was for the rear boot strut. And that was literally it. It's really solid underneath. It doesn't need any welding at all. Literally all it needed were waxing underneath, a bit of paintwork doing. But it's had all new brake lines put in, all 4 corners underneath. It's had a facelift fuel tank put in, because the original fuel pump was still playing up a little bit. But yeah, apart from that, it's literally like a brand new car underneath.
Now then, Rob, tell me why this particular car actually means something to you.
It actually means something to us. There is a family connection with the Rover brand. My dad, our dad, when we were small children, used to be a fabricator engineer. We were working away quite a lot. One of the things that they were working with, they were subcontracted by a company called Conveyors Yorkshire, based in Leeds. He was part of the team that actually was contracted to go and work at the Rover Cowley factory. And part of the system that he was involved in putting in was the conveyor system that used to move the wheels when they were unloaded on a conveyor system that used to go up an incline and then up into the roof space of the Cowley factory, and then go 200 yards along and then onto a wheel carousel where they'd then be delivered onto the production line. They had either 6 or 8 of those systems in place, and then there was also the system that he was also involved in, which was the seat delivery system, which was the conveyor system that used to transport the seats. That used to go underneath the main production line where the cars was transported along, and they used to go along technically underground, and then it used to come up an incline onto the main production line where they were fitted to the car then. And that's where the Rover connection comes from. He worked there at the Rover factory from around summer 1996 to around September, October 1998.
And your dad was sworn to secrecy about this car?
He was, yeah. He had to sign the Official Secrets Act, because at that point the Rover 75 was still in prototype and testing stage. He did actually say that he used to see cars coming in as he were working in the overhead system in the roof space. Cars coming in with covers over them on the back of low loaders and coming into an holding area where the cars would then be unloaded and the cover would then be removed, but it was a car he didn't really recognise. It was the car that later on, in late 1998, he recognised as the Rover 75.
This car's for him, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's actually to replace the 2023 Suzuki Vitara. They weren't really getting on with very well. They were too worried about it getting bumped and marked, and it would just take it fun out of actually car ownership for them. And they've decided to go back to the roots, have something that my dad can look at and still be proud of, that he had a small part in the production of the 75 in a small way.
A proper car.
A proper car that he can be comfortable with, that he can potentially drive until he can drive no more.
Now, whilst Rob and Aaron do a little diagnostics job on Kenneth, I'm going to take Fred out on the road for the first time. As much as I enjoyed having Fred the Shed in the yard, and of all the useful things he helped to do for me, I never actually drove him on the road up until now. So naturally I got to see what it's like, haven't I? Let's go. When I first saw this car and thought, gosh, what a terrible condition motor that really is, I just kind of felt something for it straight away, in the same way that I have done in the car that is now known as Bill, my 418. Boaty didn't like it, and Boaty and I were involved in a collaboration of buying and selling cars, and I decided that this should be our company car, partly because he didn't like it, and I was coming up with all sorts of ideas on how it could be resprayed and how it could look and how it could be something different and how it could stand out from every other Rover 75 in midnight blue on the roads. But you know, it never happened. And then, you know, it did start to give me trouble, caused by me letting it run out of fuel. A typical thing, really. The tank says you've got a quarter, but you park it facing up a hill and you haven't got anything. And then of course you turn it on, start trying to drive it, it sucks out all of the fuel that's in there. That then creates a nice big vacuum that causes it trouble starting again. and trouble we had. Trouble with having to take the back seat out, having to access the fuel pump, all these kind of things. And eventually it did get going, but it was never entirely right. Stubborn old me was never really going to give up on this thing, and at no point did I ever consider maybe we should just scrap it, even though there was a bit of pressure for that to be the solution. I never saw that as the solution. Then one day in a clean-up video operation, this car came up as being something that, you know, does need to go, and of course that's what happened. The rest is history, as you may well say. Rob approached me about this and said he'd be interested in buying it, and he came along with Aaron, and they had a properly good inspection of the body, where they found that, yeah, I was right. It's solid, a solid Rover 75. Who knew, eh? Who knew? Who knew that was possible? And guess what? With all that work that's been done on this, it drives like a new car. I have been quite vocal on the criticism over the Rover 75 in the past, and that's because usually they've not been looked after. They've been neglected. There are things going wrong with the suspension components that make them wander about all over the road and just generally unpleasant to be in. But this one, of course, has been transformed. I mean, even from just this angle here, when you can see what remember the headlining before, it didn't really have one at all, did it? It didn't have an interior that was nice. It didn't have any of that stuff. To say that this car has undergone a transformation is an understatement. What's it like when you put your foot down? Nice and smooth. What a smooth gearbox. That is great. It's not a car that gives you a great desire to drive like a lunatic, but it's nice when it picks up well. It's an absolute privilege to drive this car. Not many people will say that about a Rover 75, but given its history, given my affinity for the thing in the first place, which was born of it being tatty and it being right happy to help around the yard, for it now to be this wonderful, like new car to drive, not necessarily to look at, it's just amazing. Getting a 75 that's had this kind of treatment, and the appeal is obvious. It's just wonderful. Oh, you know, I haven't tried the heated seat. I don't know if it works. I'm going to find out if it does. Yes, it does work. I knew it would do. Everything else is working, so why wouldn't the heated seats? This car actually feels luxurious now. I knew it would do, but it does with these wonderfully big, soft leather seats, and the way it has a incredibly smooth ride. It's quiet, it's refined. It's what the 75 used to be before they got bought up by wannabe antique dealers running them into the ground. I think a slight name change for this car would be a good idea. St. Freddy of Wakefield. This just leaves me with one question that I'm going to have to ask. Wonderful chaps. May I ask a personal question?
Go on.
How much did it cost to do that to that car?
In total, it cost just over £4,000.
Yeah.
£4,000.
£4,000.
Yep.
£4,000. £4,000. In fact, that's some dedication there. Honestly, I really appreciate these chaps coming around. That was great. Really, really good. I'm so pleased to see Fred in this kind of condition. And if you want to see more of the progress of this car, have a look at A Class of Its Own. That's the YouTube channel where Fred's progress was documented, and it's worth a watch. So thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for being a subscriber. And if you are a channel member, a super duper big thank you for that. I will try and put more and more channel members only videos up soon. Bye bye. Biggest thank you of the day has to go to Rob and Aaron Bath for coming along with Fred the Shed, letting me drive it and doing some more diagnostics on Kenneth. And well, we're closer to the bottom of Kenneth's problem now as well, and it does involve turbos, injectors and all sorts of the other bits. Nothing major. MG Rover ice scraper, that's a little gift. A couple of those also brought for me, and a box of Quality Streets and a card. And my favourite bit, the Project Nigel umbrella.